Hi, and welcome to part 3 of the 65 Story Treehouse, continuing from Chapter 7, Stone Age Art School. We swirl and swirl and swirl until finally the wheelie bin lands. Terry is studying the chronometer. Well, I say, is this 6.5 years before the treehouse was built? Not exactly, says Terry, but we're definitely getting closer. Now we're in the year 65,000 BC. I open the lid of the bin. Wow, look, I say, cavemen. And cave women, says Terry, and cave children and cave dogs. They don't look very happy, I say. No, says Terry, they look kind of bored. Well, it's no wonder really, I say. I mean, they are living in the Stone Age. All the really good stuff hasn't even been invented yet. There are no books, no TV, no tree houses. There's nothing to do. Before stuff was invented, after stuff was invented. Terry goes up to them and says, "Hi, I'm Terry. How are you?" "Bored," says a caveman. "Why don't you draw something?" says Terry. "That's what I do when I'm bored." "Draw something?" grunts one of the cavemen. "What is draw? What is something?" "What is draw something?" says one of the cave women. Terry is shocked. "They don't even know what drawing is," he says. "It hasn't been invented yet, remember?" I say. "They don't have pens, pencils, spoon saws or paper. How could they know about drawing?" "But what about drawing in the dirt with sticks?" says Terry. "They could do that. They've got lots of sticks and plenty of dirt." Terry kneels down and starts showing the cave people how to draw in the dirt with a stick. "Now you try," he says, giving them each a stick. The cave people try to do some drawings with their sticks, but no offence, cave people, they're not very good. Even I can draw better than that, and I can't even draw. "Here," says Terry, joining up the random marks one of the cave children has done. "I'll show you how to make that into a really cool picture." The cave people get very excited. "Do it again," they grunt. "Do it again." So Terry does it again, and they get even more excited. So Terry does it a third time. "Now I'll show you painting," says Terry. "Painting?" says a caveman. "What is painting?" Terry quickly makes a brush out of some stiff grass and a stick and mixes up some dirt and water. "This is painting," he says. "You dip your brush in the mud and then daub it on the wall like this." A few of the cave people copy him. "That's it," says Terry proudly. "I think you've got it." It's not long before the cave people have covered every possible surface, ground, cave wall and even skin with drawings and paintings. "Look," says Terry, "they've done a Barky the Barking Cave Dog comic strip." "Oh no," I say, "I hate Barky." "Don't be silly," says Terry. "Everybody loves Barky, even cave people." "Barky," says the inspector. "What's Barky?" "Only the world's most boring TV show," I say. "If you run along beside it really fast, it's just like watching a cartoon," says Terry. "Cartoon?" says one of the cave women. "What is cartoon?" "See for yourself," says Terry. "Just follow me." Barky the Barking Cave Dog. "Okay, that's enough. I say, let's go." "Just one more turn," says the inspector. "I love Barky." "See, what did I tell you, Andy?" says Terry. "Everybody loves Barky, even the inspector." "We have to go," I say firmly. "We've got a building permit office to get to." "But I haven't taught the cave people about mixed media and installations or performance art," says Terry. "Don't rush them," I say. "There'll be plenty of time for that in the future. Come on." We climb into the bin and Terry starts adjusting the chronometer. "I think I've got it this time," he says. "That's what you said last time," I say. "I know," he says. "The 6 and the 5 are working fine. It's just the zeros I was having trouble with, but I'm pretty sure I've got them working now." Swirl. Chapter 8. Mummy Madness. We swirl through time once more until we feel the now familiar falling sensation. Terry peeps out at the top of the bin. "Can you see the building permit office?" I say. He says. "Does the building permit office look like a pyramid?" "No," says the inspector. "Then I think we might be in ancient Egypt," says Terry. "All I can see is a sand, a sphinx, palm trees and a big gold-topped pyramid that we're about to smash into." The day we smash landed on top of an ancient Egyptian pyramid and bumped all the way down to the bottom. Bump, 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 crash. Finally, we came to a stop. A crowd of stunned-looking ancient Egyptians are staring at the bottom of our bin. "You idiots," says one of them. "You just squashed the pharaoh." "Uh-oh," says Terry. "I think we just squashed the pharaoh, whatever that is." "That's the king of ancient Egypt," I say. "This is bad, very bad." The inspector shakes his head sadly. If only people would take the trouble to install landing warning beepers on their time-travelling wheelie bins, this sort of unpleasant accident could easily be avoided. The pharaoh lets out a loud moan. "He's still alive," says Terry. "Quick, let's get the bin off him," I say. We lift the bin off the pharaoh and help him to his feet. "Thank you," he says. "And now you must die." "But we just saved your life," says Terry. "You also just squashed me with your sky chariot," says the pharaoh, "and the penalty for squashing the pharaoh is death. Guards, seize them." "Now, just hold on a minute," says the inspector. "Who are you?" says the pharaoh. "Inspector Bubble Wrap's the name," says the inspector, "and inspecting buildings is my game." He hands the pharaoh his business card. The pharaoh looks worried. "You're a building inspector," he says. "Yes," says Inspector Bubble Wrap. "Do you have a current and valid building permit for this pyramid?" "Why, yes," says the pharaoh. "Of course I do." "May I see it?" says the inspector. The pharaoh signals to a scribe, who brings over a scroll and hands it to Inspector Bubble Wrap. The inspector unrolls it and examines it closely. "Is this your signature?" he says to the pharaoh. "Yes," says the pharaoh. "I sign and issue all my building permits myself." "This is highly irregular," says the inspector. "I've never heard of anybody signing their own building permits. I'm afraid I'm going to need you to fill out a few forms. It will take a few minutes of your valuable time, and I'll help you along with a form-filling rhyme. I'll need you to complete this building certificate. Use black ink or blue, and I'd like it in triplicate. And don't forget to include all your personal information, your star sign, your weight, and your marital situation. I'll also require all your contact details, your home phone, your address, and both home and work emails. You'll need approval from council, so here's an application, and if your neighbours object, you'll have to seek arbitration. I'll need to see some blueprints, from top to foundation, and a 5,000 hieroglyph essay in support of your application. You're an owner-builder, so I'll need proof of your qualifications. Even a pharaoh has to follow the regulations." I nudge the inspector to get his attention. "Is this really the best time to be worrying about whether the pharaoh has a permit for his pyramid?" I whisper. "Shouldn't we be trying to figure out how to avoid being put to death?" "That's exactly what I am doing," says the inspector. "While he's busy with the paperwork, we can make our escape. Come on, let's hide in the pyramid." We run through the doorway behind us and down a long corridor into a dark chamber. "I can't see anything," says Terry. "Me neither," I say. "And quit tapping me." "I'm not tapping you," says Terry. "Must be the inspector." "It's not me," says the inspector. "I'm too busy looking for my torch." "But if it isn't Terry, and it isn't you, then who is it?" "It could be a mummy," says Terry. "Ah, there's my torch," says the inspector. He switches it on. "I was right," says Terry. "It is a mummy. Ah!" The inspector turns off his torch. "Here," he says, thrusting a load of bubble wrap into my hands. "Wrap yourself up in this." "Terry," he says, "you do the same." "But why?" says Terry. "No time to explain. Just do it." We do it, and the inspector turns his torch on again. This time it's the mummy's turn to be scared. It turns and runs out of the chamber. Arrgh! "Great work, Inspector," I say. "But how did you know the mummy would be scared of other mummies?" "Just a hunch," he says. "Let's go." We head for a door on the far side of the chamber, squeeze through it, and fall straight through a trap door. Squish. We land in something soft. It's too dark to see anything, but I can feel Terry wriggling around next to me. He sighs happily. "Soft and squishy." "I'm not sure soft and squishy is necessarily a good thing, Terry," I say, "especially when it's hissing. I think we might be in a pit of asps." "What are asps?" says Terry. "Ancient Egyptian snakes," I say. "Yikes!" screams Terry. "Let's not panic," says the inspector. "Fortunately, I still have my torch." He turns it on. "I was right. We are in a pit of asps." "Ah!" "Okay, that's quite enough screaming for one pit of asps," says the inspector. "We're safely covered in bubble wrap so they can't bite us." "Yes, but how do we get out of the pit?" I say. The inspector shrugs and shakes his head sadly. "If only people would take the trouble to install emergency exits in their snake pits. This sort of dilemma could be easily avoided," he says. "We don't need an emergency exit," says Terry. "We've got asps. We can charm them and use them as a ladder." Well, that's a great idea, I say, but you need music to charm snakes, and as far as I know, none of us brought our pungies. What's a pungie? Says Terry. It's a wind instrument used to charm snakes, I say. No, I don't have one of those, says Terry, but I've got a balloon. This should work just as well. Terry blows the balloon up, pinches the neck, and starts releasing the air in a high-pitched screech. Sure, it might not be everybody's idea of beautiful music, but the snakes seem to like it. The snakes rise up, swaying and threading themselves together until eventually they form a ladder that leads right to the top of the pit. We scramble up the snake ladder as fast as we can and make it to the top, just as Terry's balloon runs out a squeak and the ladder collapses. Wow, says Terry, panting. That was even more fun than our snakes and ladders level back in the treehouse. I'm not sure that fun is exactly the word I would use, says the inspector, but I must admit I do feel quite unusually energised. I can hear shouting somewhere behind us. We better keep moving, I say. I think the Pharaoh might have finished his paperwork. We run down a long corridor, keeping a careful watch for mummies and trapdoors. Look, says Terry, pointing to a series of pictures on the wall. It's Barky the Barking Egyptian. At the end of the corridor, we come across two ancient Egyptians working on the Barky cartoon. It's us again, says Terry. Hi, ancient Egyptian Andy and Terry. Who are you? Says ancient Egyptian Andy. We're your future selves, I explain. Pleased to meet you, says ancient Egyptian Andy. Great Barky the Barking Dodgyptian cartoon, says Terry. Thanks, says ancient Egyptian Terry. Ancient Egyptian Andy rolls his eyes. I think it's dumb, he says. I agree, I say. High five, ancient Egyptian Andy. Well, we'd love to stay and chat, I say, but we're being chased by the Pharaoh's guards. Is there a fast way out of here? Sure, says ancient Egyptian Terry. He quickly scribbles a map on a piece of papyrus and hands it to me. Just follow this. We say goodbye to our ancient Egyptian selves and follow the map until at last we are back outside in the ancient Egyptian sunlight. We peel off our bubble wrap as fast as we can. That stuff is hot. Thank goodness we're out of there, I say. Yes, says the inspector. That pyramid is so dangerous it makes the treehouse look positively safe. Uh-oh, I say. Here come the guards. Run! We run. Behind us we hear the popping of the bubble wrap as the guards step on it. Pop, 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 pop. Hey, this stuff is fun, says one. They all stop, pick up handfuls of bubble wrap and start popping it like crazy. Pop, 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 pop. We reach the bin, climb in, and Terry resets the chronometer. We blast off and zoom up into the air through a cloud of sand. Phew, says the inspector. That was a close one. He takes off his hard hat and wipes his brow. Oh dear. What's the matter, I say. There's an asp, he says. Where? In my hat. No, hang on. It's not in my hat anymore. It's in the bin somewhere. Yikes, screams Terry. The bin swerves out of control and heads towards a giant stone nose. The nose of the Great Sphinx. Terry, watch out, I yell. But it's too late. The day our wheelie bin went out of control because there was an asp in it and we smashed the nose off the Sphinx. Clunk. Oops, says Terry. So that's how the Sphinx lost its nose, says the inspector. Another mystery solved, says Terry. All the mysteries we've solved. The mystery of the angry ants. The mystery of the missing building certificate. The mystery of how dinosaurs really became extinct. The mystery of the shoulder tapper. The mystery of how the Sphinx lost its nose. That's all very well, I say, but there's still an asp in the bin. Not for long, though, says the inspector. He scoops the asp up in his hard hat, opens the lid and flings both the asp and his hat overboard. Wow, that was brave, I say, and risky. And just in time, says Terry. Hold on. Here we go again. And swirl. And that is where we will leave part 3 of the 65-story treehouse. I'll be back with the next part of this fantastic story and many stories and videos coming your way very soon. If you'd like to subscribe or hit a like, that's always appreciated. Thanks for listening, guys. Take care. Bye-bye.